Good evening, and thank you all for tuning in to the Valley Reporter Mad River Valley Television 2021 Waitsfield Select Board Candidate Forum. I'm Lisa Loomis from the Valley Reporter. Thank you to Tony and Rob at MRV TV for your help, and thank you to the 6 candidates seeking seats on the Waitsfield Select Board. With us tonight as candidates are George Carpenter Jr., Sal Spinosa, and Christine Sullivan. They are seeking a 2-year seat on the board currently held by Kellee Mazer. Kellee is not running for re-election. Board Chair Paul Hartshorn is seeking election to a 3-year seat, and he is being challenged for that seat by Fred Messer, who is running as a write-in candidate. Jordan Gonda is seeking election to the last year of a 3-year term vacated by Darryl Forrest last fall. The Select Board appointed her to that seat in December to serve through town meeting day on March 2nd. The format for tonight's forum will include 1-minute opening statements followed by questions from me and those who have emailed questions to me. The chat box on Zoom is open for people to offer more questions, which my coworker Jeff Knight will be moderating. We'll be at this for roughly an hour, and I apologize in advance if my dogs bark because a plow goes by or for any other reason because they're dogs. You're all excused if your dogs bark too. Please remember to turn your cell phones off unless you're Zooming by cell phone. So without further ado, we're going to get started with opening statements, and George Carpenter is first. George, you have 1 minute.
All righty. Thank you very much. Looking forward to this and the different issues are throughout the town, and just got to be open to listening and wait on deciding on what you're going to do. There's a growing need for lower income housing. There's need to get businesses, keep them coming and going and working. And so the town runs efficiently. The town's got a lot of growing pains. And it's, it's a fine line to balance what we have, to preserve what we have and what we want to keep. So I'm looking forward to be able to push that forward in my views and being open to many others and to maybe correlate those between the other individuals throughout the
That's time. Thanks, George. I forgot to give you 10 seconds. I'll do better going forward.
That's all right. Thank you.
Jordan, you're next.
Hi, and I apologize in advance. You won't hear a dog, but you may hear a baby. He's going down to bed. Good evening, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. My name is Jordan. Lisa gave my introduction and the specifics about the seat that I'm running for. I'm really happy to be here tonight to talk about myself and my interest in running. I've previously served on the Waitsfield Planning Commission and the Mad River Valley Housing Coalition. Many of the board members, including some of the candidates you'll hear from tonight, have long histories here in the Valley. I admittedly don't, but I hope to, and I'm really working hard towards that goal. My husband and I moved here in 2011. We had our first child in last February and are now building a house. As a result of hard work and a lot of luck, we've started to be able to carve out a place here for ourselves in the Valley, but it has not been easy. There have been lots of obstacles for young people and families.
10 seconds.
Come here and stay here. I'm hoping to bring new perspective to the board's work. I'm a hard worker and I love working in the public interest. Thanks for tuning in tonight. Look forward to the questions.
Thank you, Jordan. Okay. Paul, you're next.
Well, thanks, Lisa, for organizing this public forum with the candidates. The reason that I'm running for re-election is I was a little worried about 3 new people on the board, which made it difficult. And I also got 3 things that I really want to get going and finish, and that's the East Warren Road, and we got a problem with the White House, and also the town garage, which is an unsafe working condition, and we need to do something about that. We've kicked it down the road for many, many years, and it's time that we took care of that. And we do have
Go ahead, Paul. You got 20 seconds left.
We do have a housing problem, which I don't think we're going to solve overnight. It's a serious problem, and it's going to take a lot more studying than we've done. Thank you.
Thanks, Paul. Fred, you're up.
Thank you, Lisa. And as Lisa said, my name's Fred Messer, and I'm a write-in candidate for the 3-year term on the select board presently held by Paul Hartshorn. I'm running so the voters of Waitsfield have a choice. It only seems that through a little bit of competition, you can improve yourselves. I've served as a town health officer for 3 years, and I've served as emergency management director for Waitsfield for 20 years. A little bit more about myself. I'm a Waitsfield native. I have 32 years as a veteran of the Army, serving my time attached to the Vermont Army National Guard, where I served in senior leadership positions. I am computer literate. I use email every day and attend Facebook. Like many of us, I've become familiar with Zoom.
10 seconds.
I ask you to write in my name for the 3-year term as select board member held by Paul Hartshorn. Your vote needs to be counted. You need to write my name correctly. You need the correct term
Time.
of 3 years and fill in the
Thank you,
vote.
Fred.
Thank you very much.
Okay, got to check my cheat sheet. Sal, you're up.
I'm up. Hello to everyone. And again, thank you, Lisa, for putting this on. I've lived in Wadesfield for 27 years. I know I'm still a flatlander. Nevertheless, my love for this special town drives me to seek another term on the select board. In my early years on the board, I had the good fortune to learn from select board stalwarts. It was some of the best training for this job I could have received. Since then, I have experienced many of the most challenging issues the town has ever faced. It has been an education in town business and decision-making with no equal. The town has many issues and always will. That is the nature of a vibrant Vermont town with an energized, vocal public. Because every issue is likely to have competing perspectives, what is important is the manner in which each issue, top priority or otherwise, is addressed by the board.
10
The
seconds.
public may not always agree with board decisions, but their confidence in the board will persist if information is examined and shared, interaction is broad and open, and the board accepts accountability.
Time.
That's the approach I have tried to
Thanks,
employ
Sal.
over the
That's
years.
time.
That's
Sal,
the
time.
approach
Time.
I will continue to
Time.
employ.
Don't
Sorry.
make me use the mute button.
I'm sorry.
Christine, you're up.
All right. Well, thank you for hosting, Lisa, and the Valley Reporter and Mad River Television. I'm a Waitsfield resident of 20 plus years. I have a history of volunteerism and find myself in leadership roles from time to time. My first formal board experience was through the schools, the PTA, or some of our one of our private preschool providers around here. My first elected position was 7+ years ago for the Wadesfield Town School Board. And while most of my work and volunteer work has focused on education, I wanted to make this shift to municipal government as I learned more about our challenges and the community and the ways in which we've attempted to address them. I am a project-oriented person who likes to get things done, and I feel like we're at a time where we're ready to pick up several projects and consider the future of development in our town.
10 seconds.
I think my knowledge of the issues facing us and my ability to get things done would be a valuable addition to a highly functioning board.
Thank you, Christine. Okay, that was all of you. So now remember who you speak after. George started this round. Jordan will answer the first question. And the first question is, please explain your top 3 priorities for Wakesfield.
Great question to start us off. I think a primary issue is continuing to operate under COVID. And I think that issue itself branches out and affects a lot of businesses, residents, and also town operations. So I think it's continuing to give the community the support it needs to be able to, for folks to run their day to day. I think another large issue facing our town and the state is affordable and additional housing. Becoming more accessible to people of a variety of income levels. And I think a big issue facing us in the near term here is how to improve pedestrian safety throughout town.
Thank you, Jordan. So Paul, you're after Jordan. Go ahead. Top 3 priorities.
As I said in the beginning, my major priorities is the East Warren Road reconstruction, something done with the White House and the Waitsfield Town Garage, which is in real bad shape. We have some other issues which are serious, which is the housing problem in the whole valley. And it's going to take a lot of initiative to solve that problem, even if we have to do it in small increments. It's a major problem. The safety in the main street will pretty much be taken care of with the, hopefully with the new sidewalk addition when it's completed.
Thank you, Paul. Fred, you're next.
Very good. Thank you, Lisa. With COVID-19, I'm concerned about our businesses because that's our very economic vitality of this valley. If we don't have businesses able to work at 100% and employ people, we have a serious problem. That needs to be looked at and see what we can do. Housing. I don't know how a young couple can do it these days. Jordan mentioned it. A young couple starting out, it must be an uphill battle to find housing and of quality. And the White House, I want that preserved. It's part of our heritage. It's part of who we are. We need to find a way of preserving that for perpetuity. Thank you.
Thank you. I have to consult my cheat sheet. Sal.
So, 3 top items. Number one is, no matter what the issue is before the board, it is really important that the board conduct itself in a way that is inviting to the public, listens carefully, makes good decisions, and stands by those decisions. That's a process issue. And I think it's important because it covers any of the more substantive issues in town. Number two, COVID information. And I think we need to be as clear as we can about that. The state has taken over most of it, but I think that the towns have a role in it. This is a big deal. It affects everything in town. It affects everything in the state and the nation. So we've got to put this away before we can move on. And I think what I've come to learn is that there are various degrees of wealth in town. And no matter what decisions we make,
10 seconds.
we need to keep in mind that both the people who can afford some of the decisions that the board makes, as well as those who are going to struggle.
Thank you. Time. Christine.
Yes, so I agree that getting to the other side of COVID is a top priority. I think that in doing that, we should look to what opportunities it's actually provided us with, and see how we could bring the town forward in regards to those. Housing and affordability are a big issue. I was looking at listings today. We don't have a single family residence listed for under $400,000 right now in our town. And I think that's problematic if we want to attract the young families to our town and to our schools. And obviously, a big part of our town government is infrastructure updates and upkeep. I think obviously we have some big projects ahead of us. We need to make some common sense and economical decisions and come up
10
with
seconds.
good maintenance plans to make sure we don't find ourselves in the same problem again.
Thank you, Christine. George.
Thank you. I'm not, pretty much what I said earlier is just a lot of my priorities is, affordable housing, keeping the businesses going and encouraging businesses to grow and to start off, and the other ones that have been here to grow, to get even bigger and better, with preserving our history. The White House is important, being a child, always playing around there and stuff, be nice to keep that. It's history. I love history. My grandfather was here. My father was born. My grandfather bought this farm that I'm on, 1899. We've been here ever since. And so I'd like, my daughter to continue being here, and my grandson, and enjoying the things I enjoy, skiing and all that stuff.
10 seconds.
It's a lot of fun to be in this valley. Sometimes it's a challenge, and I want to see young people be able to prosper here.
Time. Thank you. It's nice to hear all of you share so many similar priorities. The second question, we're going to start with Paul. What role do you think quality of life issues, including access to trails and recreation, as well as sports programming for kids, play in attracting people to Waitsfield? Would you support further investment in those areas? Go ahead, Paul. You're up.
I think we've done a lot in the past few years to address that issue. We have a lot of trails put in the last few years and adding all the time. And it's adding to the quality of life. But I also think we need to keep the center of the town operating in a good economic manner with the cost of keeping all of these things going as in our underlying mind. Our taxes are pretty high and we've got to hold them down.
Thank you, Paul. Okay, so next, my cheat sheet is Fred. Yeah, you can remind me who's first. Also, I just switched us to gallery view, and my coworker Jeff has a timer there. If that's helpful to you, I feel like I'm interrupting you a little bit when I shout in the middle of you. Can you all see that timer?
Yeah.
Yes, I think it's
Okay.
very helpful.
Let's try that. And if you go on past it, then I'll shout, right? Okay.
Sorry, I do not see it.
You don't see it? It's
No.
well, that's okay. I'll shout at you then.
It
No,
was on
okay,
the,
shout at me. I'm used to it.
it's on the lower left. It's not there now, though.
Well,
It's
okay.
It's not running currently, but it's on the lower left square. Fred, you might have to expand your
Go to
Zoom
full screen.
window. Yeah.
You have to be in gallery view.
Instead of up on the upper right is a little box that says view, and you can click speaker view or gallery view. And I put gallery view unless Tony comes back from wherever he is and tells me to change it, because it's helpful to see that timer. But Fred, I'll time you. So go ahead, Fred.
Okay, thank you, Lisa. Well, the obvious answer is yes. I'd like to see what we already have utilized maybe a little bit better. More information put out that we have these different trails. We're very fortunate. We got the soccer field over here on the old airport. And we've got all the trails there in our own woods and everything. But I think it's somewhat of a secret. Some of us natives to Waitsfield know about it, but people coming in and everything, I don't think they know about it that much. So I'd like to see that more advertised and made available for all people to use that. Thank you.
Thank you. Sal.
Well, I'm a big supporter of recreational activities. I think it's good for the kids. I think it's healthy. And I think it does more than just attract people to the valley. I think it helps to keep them here too. So I've voted on a lot of these kinds of projects from the Munside on down, Blue Ledges and so forth. I think I've been on the right side of those issues each time. I'll tell you this, though, we have extensive discussions about this because each time that happens, we're taking something off the tax rolls. Someone's got to pick up that burden. And as long as we can justify it and have an ample discussion about it and justify what we're doing, then I think those have been good decisions and they'll continue to be good decisions. Thank you.
You guys are flying through your time. Christine.
Okay. Yeah, I think trails are and recreational opportunities are important to the quality of life around here. Obviously, they attract a lot of people here. I think it's one of the reasons that we have so many people here during COVID is because of those opportunities. And they certainly bring economic benefits with them. Those people go to our stores, they go to our restaurants. And, so hopefully that can offset any of the, the lost taxes when we take properties off the roll. I think there is the opportunity for smart investment, but we have to plan around it as well. I see that, I don't know that we're ever in a position to become Kingdom Trails up in East Burke, but they're talking about doing studies with traffic and pedestrian because they have such high use that it's getting unsafe. So I think we need to make sure we don't find ourselves in that same situation.
Thank you. Okay. Let's see. George, sorry.
Huh?
This is question number 2, so we're at George.
Yep. Yeah, the trails and stuff. I got friends that have mountain bikes. They love, hitting the trails and building trails. And it's a good pastime. And then there's trails for walking, hiking, and jogging. Sometimes roads get overfilled with pedestrians, and you got businesses trying to run their vehicles up and down the road to know it's the only way they can go. You know, you look at the common road for example, there's a lot of people on that road. And you got to balance things out, and so trails and stuff I'm game for. I like them I have friends that have them. I particularly don't like getting out on a pedal bike anymore, but it's a lot of fun, when you're into it and you're having fun. So.
Great. Thank you. Okay, the next question.
Oh, Lisa,
Sorry, Jordan,
can I answer this one?
my see my cheat sheet? Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, go ahead, Jordan. Sorry.
Thank you. Yeah, so to address something I didn't get to make to state in my opener is just that I'm really interested in ensuring that we really consider how to protect the qualities that make this town unique in a sustainable way while we invest in ourselves to provide more opportunities to current and future residents. And I think the area of recreation is one of those areas where we've done a lot, but we can do more to invest in that future. I think specifically, recreation is important not only for people who like to be out in the trails, but it also promotes our local economy. And it overlaps and coincides a lot with our land conservation goals and our goals to protect natural resources and viewsheds. So I think there's a lot of opportunity and maybe bang for a buck there that are not evident based on first glance. And I think in terms of encouraging or enhancing our sports related opportunities for kids, I think that's very important. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. This is a bit of an overlap with your question about priorities, but please outline your thoughts on infrastructure spending, specifically on town garage, fire station, and the general weight house. Some have argued that Waitsfield has starved the beast for too long on these specific properties. And Fred, we're starting with you.
Thank you, Lisa. The White House must be preserved. That's part of our history. And I don't think that's that big of a deal, really. We've delayed working on that project for 25 years, and now we have a $100,000 deficit there. If we'd invested every year along that 25 years, they've been $4,000 a year. The fire department, Paul, last year at town meeting, there was a discussion about the safety equipment of the turnout gear for the fire department, safety of the personnel. I'm quite concerned that gets addressed so we can adequately protect our people. And the town garage is vital.
10 seconds, Fred.
Emergency management, if we have a problem, flood or something, we need that garage up and running well. Thank you.
Thank you. Sal.
Lisa, what were the three again? Town garage, weight house, and fire department?
Town garage, weight house, and fire station.
Fire station. Okay. As far as the town garage is concerned, we need to either rebuild or add on. Right now, there are safety issues at the town garage. I've had a discussion with somebody who knows about these things, and I think if OSHA ever arrived in town, they'd have some real concerns about the space within that garage. How we go about that is another question. An option tax for the town might be a possibility to bring that up to speed. I think I could be supportive of that. I certainly want to be part of that discussion. The White House, the issue with the White House is not whether or not people want it. I want it. Everyone wants it. It is as historic a site in this town as there is. The question is just exactly how do we pay for it? And if someone has a Sullivan-esque idea about how to come up with the money, I'm all ears. As far as the fire department is concerned, I have a lot of faith that they take care of their business themselves, and I would defer to their judgment.
Christine.
Okay. obviously we need to upgrade and maintain our infrastructure, especially with the town garage and the firehouse. They provide essential services. And we have to make sure that our employees are always working in safe conditions. The Wade House, I would like to see a fuller renovation, or not renovation plan, but a maintenance and upgrade plan. I noticed in the report that it pointed out that there was still some issues that are unidentified. And if you're gonna start working on an older building, you need to know your full scope of work, so you don't think you're getting into a $100,000 project and find it into a $200,000 project. The other thing I'll point out from that is we need maintenance plans on all our infrastructure and buildings. One example is the report pointed out that a boiler had been installed, or a furnace, and it hadn't been serviced in like 7 or 8 years. That's
Time.
sense.
We can come back to that. Who's after Christine? George.
George. Yes, on the town garage, it's been added on over the years, and I've been in there. I stop and visit with the boys and ask them to prune up the trees along the road, because I've had 2 broken mirrors on my truck, and we had a broken windshield. Trimming needs to be done, and I know some people don't like it done. Garage itself needs some repair, and it's been added on, and it doesn't meet specs for OSHA. On the general weight house, the town owns it, been renting spaces out to people in order to, town is obligated to have it under different specs than if a private individual owned it. That's something to be possibly looked at, to have it kept a historical site, but privately owned, and it takes the burden away from the town.
Thank you. That's time.
All right, thank you.
Jordan.
Yeah, with respect to the town garage and the fire station, I absolutely agree that costs related to maintaining these buildings and ensuring the safety of these buildings, especially for the workers, is really critical. We need to continue to support our emergency responders through COVID, but also through more normal operations. In learning a little bit about going through the budget process this year with the board, I think the town has, with great thanks to the folks participating in the budget building process, including our town administrator, have gotten us to a really good place financially. And I think we can start talking about things like longer term maintenance plans and how to fund those. In terms of the Wade House, I think I'm disappointed that we are asking ourselves this question now when so much work needs to be done. I think it's worth exploring, and I think we need to define not only what the costs are associated with certain plans, but what the future vision of the Wade House is going to be.
Thank you. And Paul.
Yeah, well, as far as the turnout gear that Fred mentioned and the safety things in the firehouse, we have that all under changes, and we've got everybody up to where they should be, Fred. I hope that makes you happy on that one, and everybody else. As far as the Wade House is concerned, I've had some thoughts about we're short of housing in town, of putting that into Benjamin Waite apartments and reasonable rates. And the town garage is more serious than anybody has got any ideas. It's almost impossible for these guys to work on the equipment in there. And as everybody mentioned, if OSHA ever gets their eyes on that place, they'll shut us down. There's none of our other employees in the town that would work under the conditions that these guys are working under. We need to do something about that.
Thank you. The next question, we're going to start with Sal. What are your thoughts about the current demographics of Wadesfield's public boards and commissions? How does your candidacy help improve the age and gender balance?
Well, I guess I'd be adding something to the pool of older people on one of those boards. I tend to look at that, though, not so much as on the age issue. To me, it's not a matter of age. It's a matter of experience and willingness to put in the time to learn about about these various projects. As far as gender is concerned, we've seen some change on the board over the past few years. We've had the first few women on the board. I think Kate might have been the first, Kate Williams. And it's becoming more normal, and I actually think it's a really good thing. I really do appreciate that. I've worked in a workplace where women are everywhere. They're responsible. They're in charge, and it's a valuable asset. And it's too bad it's taken this long. Those are my comments.
Thank you. Christine?
Well, I think one interesting thing is being on the school board, the difference in makeup, how we have many more women on the school boards than we have on our select boards. And in the select boards, it's usually maybe one woman that you see on there. So, you know, obviously the makeup of our town is we skew older, and Vermont doesn't have a very diverse demographic racially, ethnically. You know, I would add another feminist viewpoint to the board, a little bit more diversity than what we've seen in years past. And it's nice to see more than one woman on a board at a time.
Thank you. George?
Yes, well, variety is good. You have all aspects of views, of points of view and stuff is all good. Having someone that's been around the valley for a long time, or someone that's been here in the middle time, someone that's just been here 10 or 12 years, or just new, or just young. It's important. It gives a blended view to working out different issues and problems that we have with the town. Or some may think there's no problems, but you know, there's always little issues here and there, and a widespread perspective of it is good. I used to work with at Ben and Jerry's. I worked with I had 20-person crew under me, and over half of them were women, and actually they worked better than the men I had. So I would it was really a nice perspective to have.
Thank you, George. Jordan?
Yeah, I think my continued presence on the board would greatly improve the diversity in both being a female and being younger, under 40, let's say. I think that diversity is really important in especially shaping the future of the town. I think younger people can help to bring a new perspective to maybe older and more experienced members of the board in terms of what the challenges that we face, what we hope that the Valley provides to us and our families, including children. I think that Vermont towns, including Waitsfield, have a lot to think about with respect to diversity on the board. And if you've listened to the report of Susanna Davis, our new racial diversity and equity director, this is an issue that the state is facing, and I think that the board should tune into and consider.
Thank you, Jordan. Paul?
Oh, I've served on many different boards in the town in the past few years, and we've had quite a lot of diversity, and it's worked well. What I do see now is some of the younger people that are getting interested, and that's a good thing. Most of our boards are comprised of different facts of life, different ideas, and different education. And I think our boards we've got some good diversity now, and it's improving with the young people.
Thanks, Paul. Fred?
Well, as you mentioned, Lisa, our demographic is older and it's white, and we don't have much of a pool to draw from. I am pleased to see more women applying and getting on these boards and the select board, because this is not an easy board, an easy task to take on, and I commend them for that. As far as I don't, because of our demographic, because what we have to draw from within our town, it's pretty much going to be the older people. I don't see how a younger person trying to make ends meet has the time to dedicate to any of our boards, because all of our boards require a lot of time. So I'm
10
pleased-
seconds, Fred.
I'm pleased to see some younger folks and some of us old codgers here tonight applying. I think it's wonderful if they can
Thank
do it.
you. Okay, that was everybody. That was everybody for question 4. Question 5, what are your thoughts about Waitsfield, Warren, and Fayston collaborating on shared issues such as housing, recreation, and transportation? And what would that transportation look like? We'll start with you, Christine.
What would transportation or what would collaboration?
What would that, did I say transportation? I meant, what would that collaboration look like?
Obviously we're already collaborating on a lot of issues with the Mad River Planning District and kind of the umbrella organizations that we have, the rec district. I want to say that we're stronger together, and we can, when we're drawing on volunteers, and we can draw from a larger community, that helps. We can find more energy, more people. But at the same time, I have witnessed firsthand some of the challenges of that collaboration with towns, other towns in our community. So I do think that we need to be careful to, put everything out on the table and have very clear agreements and deliberate, work towards those things deliberately and collaboratively, but be very clear about what we're going to do and how we're going to get there, so that that understanding is there and we can't get it ourselves into trouble further down.
Thank you. George.
Yeah, what was the question again, please?
What are your thoughts about Waitsfield, Warren, and Fayston collaborating on shared issues such as housing, recreation, and transportation? And what would that collaboration look like?
I'm not really sure. I haven't been too involved with that. Transportation, that's we're spread out pretty good. You got possible sewage issues coming in the future. You got something of that nature possibly to look at. The getting around, if you don't have a vehicle, it's hard to get around. I haven't been too involved with that, so it's hard for me to really get talking about off the top of my head without really thinking about it.
All right, thanks. Jordan. Wait, is that right? That's
Yep.
right. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it makes a lot of sense that the 3 towns work together on a lot of these issues. We share not only geographic borders, but there's a continuity with Route 100 brings folks, back and forth between the towns and into our town center here in Waitsfield. And because of that, the town center in Irisville, I think Waitsfield does have a special role to play, even when talking about things like, especially with housing, and that being our downtown area. I do think that the work that the planning district does, along with the housing coalition and assisting the 3 towns, is really great. But I would like to push for Waitsfield to be, to make sure its own agenda is reflected in any tri-town agreements. I do think that the tri-town meetings should be happening consistently, routinely, and the discussion collaboration can happen at those venues as well.
Thank you. Paul.
Well, I think we have some joint work as we've been moving along on the housing. We've got a bill going in to vote on all 3 towns on the housing coalition as to put some money available for that. We have the police department has been working in Warren and Waitsfield together. And it's worked pretty well. I think we need to get Fayston involved in it, perhaps, but it's worked well. The fire department has been jointly with Fayston and Waitsfield. It's been a good partnership, if you will, and hopefully it'll continue.
Thank you. Fred.
Yes. Well, I noticed the questions that Lisa are asking us tonight. The same questions could be asked of the candidates for a Warren Select Board or the Fayston Select Board. The Mad River Valley works as a total entity. We need to maintain our identity, but the problems we have in Waitsfield, the same problems they have in Warren as they have in Facein. Housing, businesses, viable, and everything. Transportation, that's buses, we've tried that. That doesn't quite work. We got to find a unique solution. Freewheeling was set up about a year ago now, where it was basically a taxi service for our more senior people, and that's done by volunteers. Might be a good solution and maybe a model that we can look at for the whole
10
valley.
seconds, Fred.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Sal.
Yeah, 2 points. At one time, all of the select boards used to meet, and I don't mean representatives of the boards, but the entire board, each of the towns would meet. We'd pick a site and we'd always have invited guests. There'd always be a topic or two, and we would take information from experts on these various topics. So any one of these topics could fall into that category. I think that I really enjoyed that. And I like being there myself, not necessarily getting an interpretation from a representative. So I'd like to see that restarted and for us to focus on, for example, the 3 issues that you've mentioned, Lisa. The other point I would make is that the commonality between the towns was the cause for the creation of the planning district in the first place. I would like to review the planning district's charge and ensure that everybody has a common understanding about what it is their role is and to insist that they fulfill it.
Thank you. Okay, that is question 5. Question 6 starts with George. Do you support the inclusion of $4,000 in the proposed budget to be dedicated to the Mad River Valley Housing Coalition? Why or why not?
Why or why not? Well, you got the housing coalition. You got to be looking at the future of our children and affordable housing and all that. It's worth looking at. I haven't followed it too much, but I do know, like, my great nephew having a hard time. If it wasn't for his uncle and myself and family members, he wouldn't be able to afford a place here in town. And so things like that have to be looked at to bring, to investigate easier ways to get financial services or help to people, unique and different maybe. I don't know what there is, but other than a family member helping you, it's just the only way that I know certain people have been able to do it. And unless you got 2 people that have really good jobs that can afford to do that.
Thanks, George. Time's up. Jordan.
Yes, I support the contribution to the Housing Coalition. The Housing Coalition was sort of reinvigorated a couple of years ago and is taking on a broad suite of ways to assist the towns in exploring the affordable housing issue, and is going to use the funds, I believe, to towards the staff member who has great expertise and is assisting the towns with these efforts, including the town of Waitsfield. The Housing Coalition is providing technical support to our planning commission currently on taking a look at its bylaws to help to address the affordable housing issue here in Waitsfield. And so I think the support of the coalition is only going to come back to us through that support.
Thank you, Jordan. Paul?
Well, I support the addition of $4,000 from each town in this initiative. Hopefully it'll bring forth some leverage to get some more money involved in it. As we are now, almost impossible for senior citizens to live in the valley or settle in the valley, and the younger families, I just don't know how they're able to even start a home in the valley the way we are. It's just so expensive to purchase land and get all of the permits and that sort of thing. So hopefully out of this coalition, we'll get some answers to some of these questions, and maybe it'll solve some of our senior problems and our younger people's problems for housing in the future.
Thank you, Paul. Fred?
Yes, I think $4,000 for the Housing Coalition would be money well spent. I've noticed here tonight one theme that has gone through a lot of what we've been saying here, responses here tonight, and that has been housing. We don't have adequate housing, affordable housing in this valley. This Housing Coalition has got a tough road to hoe, because I don't think it's an easy fix in any way. I look forward to see what the solutions are, and giving them $4,000 I think is money well spent, and I look forward to hearing their report when it comes out. And when it does come out, we need to heed, we need to take it and do it.
10 seconds.
Thank you.
Thanks, Fred. Sal?
I've only recently become aware of this issue, this line item. I try to follow things that go on in town, but this one escaped me. But what occurs to me is we made quite an effort to reinvigorate the Housing Coalition. There was a lot of interest expressed in getting them up to speed again and trying to inject some new energy into it. To me, it seems like a simple call. Spending money is never a simple call. It's usually a tangled call. But if you're going to inspire the Housing Coalition to come to life and to really start to, inspire them to come up with some good plans, then I think the town needs to be ready to support that. If that means that financial support is going to help them do their job, then I think we need to be there.
Thank you, Sal. Christine?
So I am still undecided as a voter on this issue. On the one hand, affordable housing is significant for our community, a significant challenge for our community, and I think there needs to be a sense of collaboration around that, and we certainly can use support from the Housing Coalition. My concern is that I'm not sure that there's really as much clarity as people need as to what it's going to be used for. So while $4,000 on a $2 million budget is not a huge expense, I would encourage more clarity around both from our select board about how this is going to be spent, the planning district as well, in order to get some support for it.
Thanks, Christine. This next question, we're starting with Jordan. What do you think about a 3-town constable shared between Waitsfield, Warren, and Fayston?
I think that makes sense from a logical perspective. I think there's would need to be some details worked out in how that would be paid for and how the responsibilities of that individual would be shared among the towns. But I think it is worth looking into.
Speedy? Paul?
What was the question, Lisa?
What do you think about a 3-town constable shared between Waitsfield, Warren, and Fayston?
Well, I think that we've got to think of something. We don't seem to have anybody that's really interested in taking the job. So if we find one in one town that's willing to do it, it would help alleviate the police force that is checking our speeding and all of that. And it might make it easier to find somebody because it would be a paying position, perhaps. You definitely need more police protection, if you will, or especially if we get into the cannabis sales and so on. We'll need a whole lot more.
All right, thanks, Paul. Fred?
I think it's a wonderful idea. We need to do it. We don't have constable here in Waitsfield and haven't had one full-time or reasonable so for a long time. We have a dog issue. As town health officer, I get calls regularly about dog bites. Presently, we got a situation up on East Road that I talked about at the last town select board meeting. We got numerous dogs running off leash in that area, harassing citizens up there. violating their land and animals and all. We need somebody that can look into these things and enforce, among other things, our new town dog ordinance.
10 seconds.
Right. And we need to have a constable. And if we have to pay him a little something, maybe we should, but we don't have anything to enforce our own ordinances.
Thank you, Fred. Sal?
Well, the constable position is really important. The constable does things that usual law enforcement doesn't do. So they really have an important role in the towns. Let me walk you down memory lane just a bit. This has come up before, and I was very supportive of this idea. In fact, I took it upon myself to speak to a few people in town that had some law enforcement background with that in mind, that maybe the job could be expanded, that the borders could be ignored for purposes of the constable's jurisdiction. It did not gain any traction. Honestly, it was such a long time ago. I don't remember why it didn't, but I'd be happy to revisit that subject.
Thank you. Christine?
I possibly support it. I think we need to be really clear with people what functions and duties this person would serve and how that would be different from the sheriff's present that we have in town now. And I'm also just laughing, thinking back to when Faiston agreed to bring the sheriff on and then they reversed course. So I think it's a long drive to Middlesex at times. And so I think it should be something that we consider.
Thank you, George.
Yes, I think if it's definitely going to help out and save money. You're splitting it between the three towns where you have as you were talking about, you have the need of not for just the state police and this and that, but the constable, and be able to split up, have enough work between the three towns, and it becomes efficient. I think it's the way to go. And it's just look at it and look at the numbers and how it would help. Thank you.
Thanks, George. The next question, we're going to start with Paul. And Paul, by the time it is constructed this summer, the West Side Village Sidewalk project in Waitsfield will have taken almost a decade. What are your thoughts on why it took so long and what that sidewalk will represent and on pedestrian safety in the village and Irisville?
Well, I think it's taken a long time. First, we had to get the sidewalk on the east side, which took a long time to get done. And the section that went up from the fire station actually to the Valley Players was rather quick. But this last section has been a serious section to study. There's been a lot of businesses there that are really affected. But I do believe that once it's completed, that it will continue to help the safety within the town and possibly and village, and possibly we'll be able to get some state to support us in some of the things that we would like to do on that street. Thank you.
Thanks, Paul. Fred?
I'm not totally versed in the ins and outs of this particular project. I'm sure your concern that it's taken so long, but I suspect it has something to do with permits and getting right-of-ways and everything. The actual construction takes no time to do. We had an individual killed here recently in a crosswalk. So we need to start identifying places where we can improve our safety for our pedestrians. And with the sidewalk, obviously, that will help. We do not need a repeat of that most unfortunate situation. Thank you.
Thank you, Fred. Sal?
The sidewalk was part of a grander plan, and most of that plan was initiated without any controversy, to tell you the truth. It really went quite smoothly. This last section, though, became the subject of debate. And there was a lot of different debate. I won't cover all the different points of view, but what it did is it slowed everything down, it stopped everything. And actually that was seen as a good thing so that we could consider what it is that we can actually, what it is we can afford, what it is we should be doing, are we overbuilding? Those kinds of issues came up. I think now in the end, what occurs to me is that we've already got a lot invested in this. And if I'm not mistaken, the state is going to require some kind of a reimbursement from us if we don't go forward with it. I could be wrong about that, but that's my memory of it. So I think we should put it to rest. The debate is over. And even though some people may see it as kind of a duplicative effort, I think it's probably valuable in the long run.
Thank you. Christine.
Sure. So the West Side Sidewalk is probably one of the reasons that things that first brought me to select board meetings. And I know I've experienced some frustration because I feel like some of the resistance and some of the holdup in the process actually came from the select board itself. A lack of recognition that we needed that for safety. That part that was completed was through it was grant funded, Safe Routes to School, so that came through the schools. And I know that the select board at times wanted to cut back on some of the features that we're going to be going forward with on the sidewalk. And as the treasurer of the PTA, I helped advocate for the PTA to pay for those portions of the grant match that we needed so that they would be done without an expense to the town. And, you know, unfortunately, we got to the point where it would have cost us more to abandon it. That's how long it took.
Thanks, Christine. George?
Yes, you know, if that's the case that you already received money for it, let's finish it up and get it done. Drive through town all the time, and it's hard. You know, you got people trying to cross the road, and the busiest spot for me is, you know, it's the intersection on Bridge Street, and sometimes it's hard to see a person. They get behind the telephone pole that's there, so it's you really got to be on the lookout because you got people pulling in and out. Then, of course, you know, you have that loss of life right up there where there's all kinds of view. There was no reason for the person to die in there. As far as I'm concerned, it's, you know, the driver's fault. I didn't read the case, but, you know, there's all kinds of view there. There's a distraction there somewhere, but you definitely need to have safety. And it's growing. You know, the town's growing, it's getting more populated, and there's more businesses. So we need to limit the number of accidents if we can.
Thanks, George. Jordan?
Lisa, would you repeat the question for me, please?
Yes. By the time it is constructed this summer, the West Side Village Sidewalk project in Waitsfield will have taken almost 10 years to complete. What are your thoughts on that project, the lengthy delay, and pedestrian safety in Waitsfield Village and Irisville?
Thanks. I can't speak to the 10-year timeline, but I am excited being on the board now, seeing the plans and the management of the project moving forward. And I'm excited to see the work commence on it here soon. I am pleased with the design. I think it starts to incorporate some of the traffic calming and pedestrian safety types of measures that are of interest to the community. Right now, I don't think it goes necessarily far enough on that stretch of roadway and sidewalk. I think we need to consider maybe incorporating some other design elements in to achieve pedestrian safety overall. But I think there's been good management at the tail end of this piece of the project.
Thank you. And that brings me to the end of my prepared questions. And we have not received any questions in the chat. So I'm going to thank you all very much for your participation tonight. And I thank you all very much for enough about our town to run for select board. And I wish you all the best of luck on March 2nd. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you for putting this together. Thank you to everybody.
Good night, everyone, and good luck.
Good night. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Tony.
Good night, everybody.
Thanks, Tony.
Good night, Jim Bob.
I like that.